In this tutorial, we will learn about the most important types of variables. The tutorials currently being uploaded are part of a game development course I created and published on Udemy. You can get the full course from the link below the video, where you will learn how to create both 2D and 3D games by building 3 powerful and exciting projects. We have several types of variables. The first type we have is for text, which is called string, such as player name. The player's name is stored here in a variable of type string, meaning it holds textual data. For example, the player name could be Ali. This will be stored in a variable of type string. We can define a variable inside a function, but in this case, it will only be available within that function. This means that if we define a variable named health inside the ready function, and then go to the process function to call this health variable, the process function will not recognize this variable, because it only exists within the scope of the ready function. So we will press Ctrl+Z here to undo that change. To define a variable that is within the scope of the whole script, not just one function, we write it outside the functions. We will create variable by type var player name equal. For example, we will type Ali inside double quotes like this. String text must be written inside double quotes, so the engine recognizes them as variable of type string. Also, we have very useful feature in Godot and GDScript, which is automatic type inference for variables. This means that we can put a colon and specify the variable type. This variable type is a string. We will type string like this. Or we can simply leave the variable as it like this. var player name equal Ali. Here, the Godot engine automatically recognizes that this variable is of type string, because we use text inside double quotes like this. The second type we have is for integers, which is called integer. To define a variable of type integer, we will write var player health equal 100 like this. In this case, the Godot engine automatically recognizes that 100 is an integer value, meaning that the type of this variable is integer, since 100 is whole number. Now, if we change the value to 100.5, this is not integer, so it will not be of type integer. I will revert it back to 100. Next, we have variable of type float. This variable is a decimal value, meaning that if we define a variable like var speed equal 1.8, the Godot engine will automatically understand it that this variable is of type float because it contains a decimal value. So this is not an integer because it is not a whole number like 1 or 2. It's 1.8, which has a decimal part. Now we have learned about 3 types of variable. String, the textual type, where we write the text we want. Integer, the whole number type. Float, the decimal number type. We can simply define a variable by writing var followed by the variable name, and then we can give the variable its value here, or set its value at the start of the game by specifying the value of the variable inside the ready function. Player name equal Ali. This way we can assign the variable its value at the beginning or at any time later as we wish. I will revert everything back using Ctrl+Z. We also have another type which is Boolean, meaning this type can hold true or false. In other words, is the player currently dead? In this case, there will be 2 possibilities. The first possibility is true. Yes, the player is dead. Or the second possibility is false. The player is not dead yet. We can simply type var is dead equal false at the beginning of the game. This is variable of type Boolean, which expects only true or false values. Var is dead equal false. The nice thing about Godot engine is that it doesn't require us to use explicitly declare the type of variable. This means we don't need to write string or integer or any other type. The Godot engine doesn't need all that. It just needs the value and it knows the type of the variable by itself. Now simply I will remove health variable and then print the value of the player health variable. As we learned before, we will simply type print player health like this. Now if we add the variable name, it will print its value. When we print player health variable, it will go and find the value of the player health. Here it's 100. It will print that. Now we will save the scene, and when we run the game, we will see it printed 100, which is the value of the player health variable. It printed the value only once at the beginning of the game because we used ready function. Here's another feature to help us to understand this better. Someone might ask me, what's the problem with writing print 100 directly? The first reason, if we use this number 100 in multiple functions and in several places, I will print this number 100 5 times. When we run the game, it will print the number 100 5 times. So what's the need to write variables? Imagine if this is the player health, and instead of writing player health, we use this number directly. What would happen if the player took a hit? In that case, we would need to change all these values to 80. If we go here and write 80, imagine that this code is repeated multiple times, more than 5 times. That would be a problem in the game, because a variable like player health is used multiple times. For example, if the player health is 100, that means health is full. If the player changes to 0, the player dead. If the player health changes to 20, a red screen would appear to inform the player that they are close to losing. If we use the player health like this, we will use it in many places in the game. If I tell you to change the player health to 70, you would change the value from here to 70, but when it prints the value, it would print 70 multiple times, even if it's changed just once. If I tell you that the player lost, set the value to 0, we would change player health here to 0, and all the values in the code would change to 0 at once. This was a simple example of a variable types and how to print values.